Hey, welcome. Today we're going to dive into the incredibly tough, but also rewarding world of running your own business. And we're going to unpack the real meaning of profit using a pretty delicious example. Let's get right into it.
I mean, come on, who hasn't? You're sitting at your desk and you have that little daydream of being your own boss, turning something you love into a real paycheck. It's a super powerful dream, right?
So, let me introduce you to our hero for this explainer. They're a software programmer who decides to trade in their keyboard for a kitchen, chasing that dream of opening the best samosa shop in town. But as we're about to see, passion needs a plan. Okay, so the shop opens, customers are lining up, the smell is amazing, and money is coming in. The business is profitable. Or is it? The answer to that question really depends on how you define that one little word, profit. So on the surface, everything looks fantastic. The cash register is full at the end of the day, and after you pay for the flour, the potatoes, the oil, the rent, there's money left over. But, an economist would look at this and say, hold on, you are missing a huge piece of the puzzle. And this is where things get really interesting. See, an accountant looks at profit one way. They take your total revenue and subtract the explicit costs. That's the actual money you paid out. But an economist adds something called implicit costs. And trust me, that one little change is a total game changer. So what on earth is an implicit cost? Well, you've probably heard of it by another name, opportunity cost. It's simply the value of the road not taken. For our new entrepreneur, the big alternative to running a samosa shop was, their old programming job. The real hidden cost of their choice is the salary they had to give up. And that salary wasn't small. We're talking 10,000 rupees a day. Now, that's not a bill they have to pay, but it is a very, very real cost of doing business. Think about it. If the shop's daily profit doesn't clear that number, then from an economic point of view, they're actually losing money. All right, so armed with this new, true understanding of profit, our entrepreneur sees a path forward. Time to grow. But to do that, they're going to face a whole new challenge, and it's happening right there in the kitchen. This is such a classic business problem. More workers should mean more samosas, right? I mean, that makes sense, but it's not quite that simple. The real question isn't, should I hire someone? It's how many people should I hire? Let's just look at the numbers. The first worker, all by themselves, they can crank out 50 samosas an hour. Awesome. You bring in a second worker, and now you're making 90. But wait a second, that second worker only added 40 more. And a third? They only add 20 more. See that pattern? The extra output from each new person is getting smaller and smaller. This is a fundamental concept in economics. It's called the law of diminishing marginal product. Or you could just call it the too many cooks in the kitchen rule, because that's literally what's happening. Eventually, workers start bumping elbows, they're waiting for the fryer, they're getting in each other's way, and their individual productivity starts to drop. And understanding that production principle is so important because it has a direct effect on our costs. So to make really smart decisions, we've got to break down every single expense. Costs actually come in a few different flavors. You've got your fixed costs, like rent, that stays the same no matter what. Then you have variable costs, like flour and oil. The more samosas you make, the more those costs go up. And then there's this other category, sunk costs. That's money that's gone forever, like a non-refundable license fee. The key is knowing which is which and not letting those sunk costs influence your future decisions. Okay, but out of all these different types of costs, there is one that is the absolute king, the most important one for making decisions, marginal cost. All it means is this: what is the cost of producing just one more samosa? That's it. That simple number is going to be our guide for everything. So we get profit, we understand production, and we've broken down all the costs. Now, for the main event, how do you put all this together to find that absolute sweet spot for making the most money you possibly can? See, in a competitive market, our little shop can't just decide to charge whatever it wants. The neighborhood, the competition, they set the price. So if you can't control the price, what can you control? The answer is quantity. How many samosas should you make each day? And the secret is this beautifully simple rule. You will always maximize your profit by producing at the exact quantity where the price you get for your product equals your marginal cost. P equals MC. That's the magic formula. And the logic behind it is just
It's so elegant. Think about it. If the price you can sell a samosa for is higher than what it costs you to make that one more samosa, of course you're going to make it. You're adding to your profit. But the second the price is lower than the cost of making that next one, you stop. You'd lose money on it. So that sweet spot is right where they meet.
But, business isn't always about growth and big profits. What happens when things go wrong, when the market turns against you and suddenly you're losing money? Knowing when to quit, or even just when to take a break, is probably the hardest decision of all.
And disaster strikes. A shiny new competitor opens up shop, a price war kicks off, and the going rate for a samosa just plummets. Now the price is actually below what it costs our owner to make them. What do they do?
Here we have two totally different decisions. There's the short-run decision to maybe shut down for the day, and then there's the long-run decision to exit the business for good. The choice depends entirely on which costs you look at. In the short run, you're just looking at your variable costs, but for the long run, you have to cover everything. Now, this next part is a little counterintuitive, so stay with me. For that short-run decision, you have to completely ignore your fixed costs. You've already paid this month's rent, right? That money is gone. So as long as the low price of a samosa still covers the variable costs, the flour and oil, it actually makes sense to stay open. Why? Because every single sale helps pay down a little piece of that rent you owe anyway. And that brings us right back to where we started. So let's say our programmer's shop has cash in the bank at the end of the year. It has an accounting profit. But if that amount is less than the 10,000 rupees a day they gave up from their old programming job, meaning they have an economic loss, was it worth it? Did they make the right choice? That right there is the entrepreneur's dilemma.